2 centuries apart, two devastating fires. In both cases, Black New Yorkers stood at the center of the story. One fire initiated a rebellion against slavery. The other engulfed the financial heart of the city. One Black man emerged a celebrated hero, welcomed into the drawing rooms of the elite. Another became the most hated man on Wall Street, reviled not for breaking the law, though often, to be honest, he did break the law. But really, his true crime was an unwritten rules of racial capitalism. This is the story of fire, race, and power in America's first great city, and the very different paths two Black men took when faced with the same kind of disaster. Hi, you're in class with Dr. T. On April 6, 1712, New York City was still a small but bustling colonial port, second only to Charleston as an urban slaveholding center. Nearly 20% of the city's population was African descended, and most were enslaved. They built the roads, unloaded ships, and labored in workshops, often under conditions harsher than in rural plantations. That night, about 24 enslaved Africans gathered in secret. Their plan was bold: set fire to a building near Maiden Lane. When white townspeople rushed to put it out, they would strike. The flames roared, the alarm spread, and soon a violent clash erupted. For the city's white elite, merchants, slave traders, colonial officials, this was their nightmare made real. The Haitian Revolution, a revolution that would end slavery and strike a blow against racism, was almost 80 years in the future. But now in 1712, showed the idea that Black people could rise up and organize armed resistance was very terrifying. The colonial government responded with overwhelming force. More than 70 Black people were arrested. At least 21 were executed, some hanged, others burned alive in public as a warning. A few white colonialists accused of helping the rebels were punished. Surviving Black New Yorkers were exiled, and the city's slave codes were rewritten to make movement, gathering, and self-defense even more impossible. The 1712 rebellion cemented a link in the minds of white New Yorkers between fire and Black insurrection, a fear that would echo for generations. Over the 18th and 19th century, New York transformed from a colonial outpost into America's financial capital. Slavery persisted until 1827. That's New York. Slavery would end in 1827. And even after emancipation, racism would be embedded in New York City's economic order. This is what scholars now call racial capitalism, where the economic system and racial hierarchy reinforce each other. Black New Yorkers could labor, but rarely accumulate wealth. Even free and skilled Black workers were banned from many trades, excluded from unions, and denied full citizenship rights. Yet by the 1830s, a small class of free Black entrepreneurs had emerged. Some catered to white elites, using their businesses to carve out influence and fight for gradual reforms. Others, though far fewer, operated in more confrontational ways, pursuing success without regard for white approval. The stage was set for the Great Fire of 1835 to bring these contrasting approaches into stark relief. On the frigid night of December 16th, 1835, a fire broke out at a warehouse on Pearl Street. Strong winds and sub-zero temperatures turned it into a catastrophe. Water from hoses froze before it hit the flames. The fire leapt from building to building, consuming the heart of the financial district. By the time it was over, more than 600 buildings were gone. Merchants lost fortunes. The financial hub of the young republic lay in ruins. For most, it was a tragedy. For a few, it was an amazing opportunity. And for two Black New Yorkers, it was a defining moment, though in ways that could not have been more different. For example, Thomas Downing was born free in 1791 on Virginia's Eastern Shore to parents who had escaped slavery. Moving to New York in the 1820s, he opened Downing's Oyster House, which became the most famous oyster restaurant in the city. Its patrons were merchants, bankers, politicians, the same white elite who held the keys to the city's economy. But Downing wasn't content just to serve oysters. He used his position to press for racial justice, though often clandestinely. He was a committed abolitionist, supporting the Underground Railroad and hosting anti-slavery meetings in his restaurant after hours. He fought segregation on public transportation, challenging the exclusions of Blacks on these forms of transportation. One of the few daily public arenas was Blacks and whites using public transportation, often horse carried in that time, right? Interestingly though, Downing fought racism, he had to suffer some contradictions. For example, his oyster house did not serve Blacks. Only whites were allowed. Still, when the Great Fires swept through Lower Manhattan, Downing sprang into action, risking his life to help save property, both his own and that of neighboring merchants. His heroism was widely reported. The white elite, so often wary of Black assertiveness, now celebrated him. In Downing, they saw a man who embodied, quote unquote, respectability, Black citizenship, prosperous, service-oriented, loyal to the city's stability. Yet, he never stopped quietly undermining the racist structures of that same city. And then there was Jeremiah G. Hamilton, born around 1806, perhaps in Virginia or perhaps in Haiti. He comes to New York under scandal. And this is where we're first introduced to him in the historical record. He was accused of smuggling counterfeit coins in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. But once in Manhattan, he plunged into the world of finance. The 19th century stock and property markets were already cutthroat. Insider deals, speculative bubbles, and ruinous competition were common. Hamilton excelled in the environment. During the 1835 fire, while others scrambled to save goods, Hamilton seized the moment buying fire-damaged properties at bargain prices, bankrupting rivals and walking away richer than before. Plenty of white financiers did the same. The difference? Hamilton was Black. White elites could forgive ruthless capitalism when practiced by one of their own, but a Black man outside their networks refusing to play by the rules of racial deference was intolerable. The press demonized him as the Black Prince of Wall Street, painting him as dangerous and unscrupulous. Hamilton made no effort to soften his image. He did not publicly align himself with abolitionists. He did not take on segregation directly and really employed Black workers. He was a path of individual ascent, individualism, forcing open the door of wealth and keeping it for himself. In doing so, he became the first known Black millionaire, at least in New York, a living contradiction to the racist belief that Black people could not thrive in high finance. So from 1712 to 1835, fire in New York City was never just about destruction. It was a mirror reflecting the city's deepest fears and prejudice. In 1712, fire was a weapon of enslaved rebels, proof to the white elite of a potential Haiti in the making. In 1835, fire produced two black men whose responses could not have been more different. Thomas Downing, a reformist hero celebrated for saving the property of the very class that upheld the racial hierarchy, yet quietly working to dismantle it. Jeremiah Hamilton, a capitalist anti-hero, vilified for playing and winning the same ruthless economic game the white elite played themselves. Both men operated under racial capitalism. Downing tried to bend it towards justice. Hamilton used it simply for his personal gain. The same system elevated one as a symbol of racial progress, condemned the other as a dangerous anomaly, proving that in New York, acceptance had less to do with success itself and more to do with whether that success served the stability of the existing racial order. Fire has always tested New York, not just its building, but its values. In 1712, the flames signaled a challenge to the entire social order. In 1835, they became a stage for the contradictions of racial capitalism. Reform and respectability on one side, defiance and individualism on the other. Both paths came at a cost, and both remind us that in America's first great city, the heat of the fire was never just in the flames, it was in the fight over who belonged, who thrived, and who decided the rules. Thank you. Please subscribe, please like, and smash that bell. Also, please leave a comment. Tell me what you think of Jeremiah G. Hamilton or Thomas Downing. What do you think about the rebellion of 1712? Thank you.